My son sold my $1.2 million Barcelona home while I was in the hospital and left me with just $5,000 to start over. After 40 years as a nurse saving lives and caring for others, I never imagined my own child would leave me homeless and penniless. Olivia Morales stared out the window of her modest apartment in Elborn, Barcelona. At 68, her olive complexion still held the warmth of her youth, though worry lines had deepened around her eyes. Her silver-streaked black hair was pulled back in a neat bun, a habit from her 4 decades as a nurse at Barcelona General Hospital. The morning sunlight bathed the small balcony where she tended to her potted geraniums and herbs, rosemary, thyme, and basil reminiscent of the garden she had cultivated with her late husband Antonio. The apartment, though significantly smaller than the beautiful home she had shared with Antonio in the charming Gracia neighborhood, was still comfortable. The walls were adorned with photographs of their life together, their wedding at the Santa Maria del Mar holidays in Mallorca, and Antonio's proud smile when he completed renovating their family home. Antonio had been gone for 3 years now. A heart attack had taken him suddenly one warm September evening as they sat on their terrace, planning a trip to visit their son Diego in Madrid. The memory still brought an ache to Olivia's chest. "You are the strongest woman I know, mi amor," Antonio had always told her. "Promise me you'll always keep our home for the family. It's our legacy." She had made that promise, and she had intended to keep it. Olivia had managed well on her own. Her pension of $3,500 a month afforded her a comfortable life. She volunteered at the local hospital twice a week, spent time with her neighbors in the plaza, and spoke weekly with her brother Rafael in Madrid. Her life had found a peaceful rhythm, though she missed Antonio every day. Picking up a framed photo of Diego from the side table, Olivia sighed. Her son had his father's eyes and her stubborn chin. He had always been ambitious, impatient. Even as a child, he had wanted everything immediately. While Rafael, 6 years younger, had been content with simple pleasures, Diego had always demanded more. Antonio had been firm with him, perhaps too firm at times. "He needs to learn the value of hard work," Antonio would say when Diego complained about his father's refusal to fund another failed business venture. "Our home, everything we have, was built brick by brick, not handed to us." Their arguments had grown more heated as Diego entered adulthood. When Diego married Carmen, a beautiful woman from Seville with expensive tastes, the tension only increased. Antonio had refused to invest in Diego's real estate ventures, calling them castles in the air. The final argument had been particularly vicious, with Diego storming out accusing his father of always favoring Rafael. "Diego has his father's passion, but none of his wisdom," Olivia whispered to herself, replacing the photograph. She hadn't seen her son in nearly a year, though they spoke on the phone occasionally. His calls usually coincided with financial difficulties, a pattern Olivia recognized but chose to ignore out of maternal love. The buzzing of her phone interrupted her thoughts. Diego's name flashed across the screen. "Mama, are you there?" His voice sounded different, strained, nervous. "Diego, what's wrong?" Maternal instinct immediately sharpened her senses. It's complicated. I've lost my job. The development project collapsed and the investors are furious. Carmen and I..." He paused, his voice cracking slightly. "We might lose our apartment." Olivia's heart constricted. Despite everything, he was her son. "What happened, mijo?" "There were accusations of mismanagement. Nothing was proven, but the damage was done." Diego's voice hardened. "They made me the scapegoat, mama. It wasn't fair." Olivia closed her eyes, remembering similar stories over the years. Always someone else's fault, never Diego's. "Where will you and Carmen go?" she asked softly, already knowing the answer. "That's why I'm calling. We need a place to stay just until I get back on my feet. A few months at most." The desperation in his voice was palpable. "Please, Mama. I don't know where else to turn." Olivia thought of her peaceful existence, her small but comfortable space. Then she thought of Antonio, of family loyalty, of promises made. "When will you arrive?" she asked, already mentally rearranging her home to accommodate them. "Tomorrow, if that's okay. Mama, I can't tell you how much this means to me. I'll make it up to you, I promise." After hanging up, Olivia sat quietly for a long moment. A feeling of unease crept along her spine, but she pushed it away. He was her son. Family took care of family. That was the promise she had made to Antonio and to herself. What Olivia didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that this decision would set in motion a chain of events that would strip her of everything she held dear. The following afternoon, Olivia anxiously tidied the guest bedroom, changing the linens and dusting the old dresser. The room was small but had a lovely view of the street below. She had spent the morning preparing Diego's favorite meal, a traditional paella with seafood and chicken the way Antonio had taught her. The doorbell rang at precisely 3 o'clock. Taking a deep breath, Olivia smoothed her dress and opened the door. Diego stood there looking thinner than she remembered his once immaculate appearance, slightly disheveled. His designer suit, clearly expensive, showed signs of wear. Beside him stood Carmen, still breathtakingly beautiful at 38, her dark hair falling in perfect waves around her shoulders. Behind them were several large suitcases, far more than would be needed for a few months. "Mama!" Diego embraced her, holding on a moment longer than usual. "Thank you for taking us in." "Olivia, you look wonderful." Carmen kissed her cheeks, the scent of expensive perfume enveloping Olivia. "This building is so charming, so authentic." Something in the way Carmen said authentic made Olivia feel as though her home had been labeled quaint but inadequate. She pushed the thought aside and ushered them in. "I've prepared the guest room for you both," Olivia said, leading them down the narrow hallway. "It's not very big, but—" "It's perfect, Mama," Diego interrupted, though his eyes scanned the small space with barely concealed disappointment. "Just until we get back on our feet." Over paella, Diego recounted the story of his professional downfall, his voice rising with indignation as he described the betrayal by his business partners. "They were jealous of my connections, my vision," he said, refilling his wine glass for the 3rd time. "The project would have been revolutionary luxury condominiums with smart technology overlooking the Mediterranean. Diego was the creative mind behind everything." Carmen added her hand on his arm. "The investors just couldn't see his vision. They were small-minded." Olivia listened, nodding sympathetically, though a familiar doubt crept into her mind. The story seemed to shift slightly with each retelling details, changing subtly to cast Diego in an increasingly favorable light. "What about your savings?" Olivia asked gently. "I thought the Valencia project was successful." A shadow crossed Diego's face. "We had to use that money to cover legal fees. The accusations were serious, Mama. We had to defend ourselves." "And the apartment in Madrid?" Carmen answered, this time her voice tight. "The bank foreclosed last month. The market crashed exactly where our investments were." Olivia sighed, remembering Antonio's warnings about diversifying investments. Diego had always chased the highest returns, the quickest profits. "What will you do now?" she asked. Diego's expression changed, brightening with the familiar enthusiasm that always preceded his next venture. "I have connections opportunities. A former client has offered me a consulting position. I just need some time to arrange everything." He reached across the table, taking Olivia's hand. "And I want to help you while I'm here, Mama. You shouldn't be living alone at your age." "I manage very well, thank you," Olivia replied, a hint of steel in her voice. "Of course you do," Carmen interjected smoothly. "But wouldn't it be nice to have some help with the shopping? The banking Diego is excellent with finances." Before Olivia could respond, Diego continued. "Speaking of which, Mama, have you thought about your estate planning after Papa passed?" "Your father's affairs were in order," Olivia said firmly. "Everything was arranged as he wished." An unreadable expression crossed Diego's face. "As he wished? You mean leaving everything to you and nothing to his sons?" The tension in the room thickened. Olivia placed her fork down carefully. "Your father built that house with his own hands over 20 years. He wanted to ensure I would always have a home." She paused, meeting her son's gaze directly. "The house will be divided equally between you and Rafael when I'm gone. That was always the plan." "Rafael?" Diego scoffed. "He barely visits you. He's off living his life in Madrid while you're here alone." "Rafael calls me every Sunday," Olivia countered. "And he invited me to live with him after your father died. I chose to stay in Barcelona." Diego's jaw tightened momentarily before he forced a smile. "I'm sorry, Mama. I didn't mean to upset you. It's just been a difficult time." He raised his glass. "To family. To new beginnings." Later that night, as Olivia prepared for bed, she overheard Diego and Carmen talking in the guest room, their voices carrying through the thin walls. "The apartment is barely worth selling," Carmen whispered. "We need access to more." "Be patient," Diego responded. "She has her pension and the house in Gracia is worth at least $1 million. We just need to convince her it's too much for her to manage alone." "And your brother?" "What if he interferes? Rafael is too busy with his perfect little family to care. Besides, I'm the one here taking care of her. That counts for something." Olivia stood frozen in the hallway, her heart pounding. The conversation confirmed what she had sensed earlier, that Diego's return wasn't merely about needing temporary shelter. There was a deeper agenda at play. She retreated to her bedroom, locking the door behind her, something she had never done before. As she lay in bed, memories of Antonio's warnings echoed in her mind. Diego sees money as the solution to everything, he had said. He never learned that wealth comes from work and sacrifice, not shortcuts. Olivia stared at the ceiling, anxiety gnawing at her. She had promised Antonio to keep their home in the family. Now she wondered if that promise might be used against her. The first month passed in a strange new rhythm. Diego and Carmen settled into Olivia's life with surprising ease, gradually taking over more and more aspects of her daily routine. At first, the changes were small, welcome even. Diego insisted on driving Olivia to her doctor's appointments, giving her a break from navigating Barcelona's crowded buses. Carmen took over the cooking, preparing elaborate meals that, while delicious, were far more extravagant than Olivia's simple fare. "You work too hard, Mama," Diego would say when Olivia tried to help with household chores. "Let us take care of things for a while." Olivia found herself with more free time than she was accustomed to. Initially, she enjoyed having company after 3 years of living alone. Diego seemed genuinely interested in her life, asking about her days at the hospital, her friends, her routines. Carmen showed surprising warmth, sharing stories of her own childhood in Seville. "My father left when I was 7, Carmen confided one afternoon as they shared tea on the balcony. "My mother worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. She died never knowing financial security." Her eyes darkened. "I promised myself I would never live that way, never be that vulnerable." Olivia felt a surge of compassion. "That must have been very difficult for you, Hia." Carmen nodded, her perfect composure cracking slightly. "Money isn't just money, Olivia. It's safety, protection." She glanced at Olivia. "You're fortunate to have your pension, your home. Many women your age have nothing." The conversation left Olivia thoughtful. Perhaps she had judged Carmen too harshly. Perhaps the young woman's fixation on financial security stemmed from genuine fear rather than materialism. As the weeks progressed, Diego began to show more interest in Olivia's financial arrangements. "Mama, have you considered consolidating your accounts?" he asked one evening after dinner. "Managing multiple accounts at your age can be confusing." "I've managed them fine for 3 years, Olivia replied. "Of course, but why struggle?" Diego's tone was reasonable, caring. "I could help you set up automatic payments for your bills, organize your investments. It would give you peace of mind." Carmen added, "Diego managed all our finances brilliantly before the market turned. He has quite a gift." Olivia hesitated. She had always been independent, handling the household finances even when Antonio was alive. But lately, she had found herself confused by some of the online banking changes, the new apps, and security procedures. "Perhaps you could show me how to use the new banking website," she conceded. "I find it quite different from the old system." Diego's eyes lit up. "Absolutely, Mama. We'll go through it together." That weekend, Diego sat with Olivia at her small desk, helping her navigate the bank's website. He was patient, explaining each feature carefully. When they reached the transfer section, he frowned. "Your daily transfer limit is very low, Mama. That could be problematic in an emergency." "What kind of emergency would require large transfers?" Olivia asked. Diego shrugged. "Medical expenses, unexpected repairs. Life is unpredictable." He clicked through several menus. "Let me help you increase the limit just for safety." Before Olivia could object, he had changed the settings, raising her daily transfer limit substantially. The following week brought a turning point that Olivia would later recognize as the beginning of her loss of control. Stepping out of the shower, Olivia reached for her towel and lost her balance. Her wet foot slipped on the tiled floor and she fell hard against the sink. Pain shot through her hip as she crumpled to the floor. "Diego, Carmen," she called out, her voice tight with pain. They rushed in immediately. Diego carefully helped her up while Carmen wrapped her in a robe. "We need to get you to the hospital," Diego insisted, already reaching for his phone. The emergency room doctor confirmed nothing was broken, but severe bruising would limit Olivia's mobility for several weeks. She was prescribed pain medication and rest. The accident changed everything. Suddenly dependent on Diego and Carmen for even basic tasks, Olivia found her autonomy rapidly diminishing. "You can't go up and down to the bank in this condition," Diego insisted when Olivia mentioned needing to withdraw cash for her medications. Give me your card and PIN, and I'll take care of it. Olivia hesitated. Antonio had always cautioned against sharing banking details with anyone, even family. It's just until you're back on your feet, Mama, Diego assured her, his expression full of filial concern. You need your rest. Reluctantly, Olivia wrote down her PIN and handed over her debit card. Just for the medications, she emphasized. Of course, Diego nodded solemnly. I'll bring you the receipt. That evening, as Carmen helped her prepare for bed, the younger woman was unusually talkative. You know, Olivia, you really shouldn't be living alone at your age. That fall could have been much worse. I've lived alone for 3 years without incident, Olivia pointed out. Carmen perched on the edge of the bed, her expression serious. But you were lucky this time. Next time you might break a hip or worse. Diego and I have been talking. About what? Olivia's guard immediately rose. About taking care of you properly. We could move back to Gracia, to your house. There's plenty of room for all of us and no stairs to navigate. The suggestion caught Olivia off guard. Her house in Gracia, the home she and Antonio had built together where they had raised their sons, was rented out to a lovely young family. The rental income supplemented her pension nicely. The house is occupied, Olivia said. They have a 3-year lease. Carmen waved a dismissive hand. Leases can be broken for family emergencies. And this is an emergency, Olivia. Your health, your safety, these are priorities. Before Olivia could respond, Diego entered with a glass of water and her pain medication. Time for your medicine, Mama. The doctor said to take it regularly, even if the pain seems manageable. As Olivia swallowed the pill, she noticed Diego and Carmen exchange a glance. Something unspoken passed between them, a communication she wasn't privy to. That night, Olivia slept fitfully troubled by dreams of her home in Gracia being emptied, her possessions disappearing one by one while she stood helplessly watching. The following week saw a gradual but definite shift in the household dynamic. Diego took over all financial matters, insisting it was for Olivia's benefit while she recovered. I've set up automatic payments for all your bills, he announced proudly, and I've organized your accounts more efficiently. What does that mean, organized? Olivia asked. Just simplified things, consolidated some accounts to reduce fees. Diego's explanation was vague, his attention already shifting to his phone. Don't worry about the details, Mama. It's all taken care of. Carmen, meanwhile, began a subtle campaign to convince Olivia that her apartment was inadequate. This building is so old, Olivia. The wiring is probably unsafe. And the neighborhood has changed. I've noticed some unsavory characters hanging around the plaza at night. When Olivia mentioned her friends in the building, Carmen sighed. They're lovely people, of course, but can they really help in an emergency? Most of them are as elderly as you are. The isolation began gradually. First, Diego suggested that Olivia's volunteer work at the hospital was too strenuous. The doctor said you need complete rest, Mama. Surely the hospital can manage without you for a few months. Then Carmen began screening Olivia's phone calls. So many telemarketers these days, she explained when Olivia questioned why she hadn't heard from her neighbor Maria. I told her you were resting and would call back. Olivia's weekly calls with Rafael became less frequent. Twice she tried to reach him only to find Diego had taken her phone to update the software. One afternoon, 6 weeks after her fall, Olivia was feeling significantly better. While Diego and Carmen were out shopping, she decided to check her bank accounts. Opening her laptop, she found the banking website already logged in. Diego must have forgotten to sign out. What she saw made her blood run cold. Her main account, which should have contained nearly $30,000 in savings, showed a balance of just $4,200. Her pension deposits were there, but followed by immediate large withdrawals. There were transfers to accounts she didn't recognize, payments to companies she'd never heard of. Panic rising in her throat, Olivia clicked through to her other accounts. Each showed the same pattern: funds depleted, transferred elsewhere, with only minimal balances remaining. The front door opened and Olivia quickly closed the laptop. Diego and Carmen entered, arms laden with shopping bags from expensive boutiques. Mama, you shouldn't be up, Diego chided, setting down his bags. Where's your cane? I don't need it anymore, Olivia said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I'm feeling much better. Carmen exchanged a glance with Diego. That's wonderful news. We should celebrate. I bought ingredients for a special dinner. Olivia forced a smile. Actually, I was thinking of going to the bank tomorrow. I need to discuss some matters with my account manager. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. Diego's face hardened. "The bank what for? Just routine business," Olivia replied, watching their reactions carefully. "I haven't been in months." Carmen stepped forward, her voice honey-sweet. "But Diego has been handling everything so beautifully. There's no need for you to stress yourself." "Nevertheless, I'd like to go," Olivia insisted. "I've always managed my own affairs." Diego's expression changed concern, replacing his momentary tension. "Of course, Mama. I'll drive you. Just let me know when." That night, Olivia lay awake, her mind racing. The evidence was clear. Diego was systematically draining her accounts. But why? What was he planning? And how could her own son betray her this way? The promise she'd made to Antonio echoed in her mind to keep their home for the family to preserve their legacy. That promise now seemed like a trap, one that Diego was using to manipulate her. Tomorrow, she decided she would call Rafael. She would go to the bank, change her PIN, secure what funds remained. She would take back control before it was too late. What Olivia didn't realize was that it was already too late. While she slept, Diego was in the guest room, phone pressed to his ear. "The situation has accelerated," he whispered to someone on the other end. "She's suspicious. We need to move forward with the power of attorney documents immediately." He listened for a moment, then glanced toward his mother's closed door. "No, she won't sign willingly. We'll need to be creative. But don't worry, by this time next month, the house in Gracia will be ours to sell." Hanging up, Diego turned to find Carmen watching him, her dark eyes unreadable. "Are you sure about this?" she asked softly. "Once we cross this line—" Diego's expression hardened. "My father left me nothing. Everything went to her, and she favors Rafael, always has. I'm just claiming what should have been mine all along." Carmen nodded slowly, but a flicker of uncertainty crossed her face, a momentary hesitation that would later prove significant in Olivia's fight for justice. The following morning, Olivia woke with a sense of resolve. She dressed carefully, choosing a proper outfit rather than the house dress Carmen had been encouraging her to wear, and made her way to the kitchen. To her surprise, she found Diego already there preparing coffee and toast. "Mama, you're up early," he smiled warmly. "I was going to bring you breakfast in bed." "I've never been one for eating in bed," Olivia replied, settling at the small kitchen table. "Diego, I'd like you to drive me to the bank this morning." Diego's smile faltered slightly before returning. "Of course, but there's something we need to discuss first." He placed a cup of coffee before her, much weaker than she preferred. "I've been organizing your insurance policies and noticed your health coverage has some serious gaps." "My coverage is excellent," Olivia countered. "The hospital union plan is very comprehensive." "For ordinary care, yes." Diego nodded, sliding into the chair opposite hers. "But for long-term care, rehabilitation, home nursing, all the things you might need as you get older, there's almost nothing." Before Olivia could respond, he produced a folder filled with official-looking documents. "I've researched some supplemental policies. They require a medical exam and some paperwork." He extracted a multi-page document and placed it before her. "This one is particularly good. If you'll just sign here, I can get the application process started." Olivia glanced at the dense text, noting the official bank letterhead at the top. "This doesn't look like insurance paperwork." "It includes authorization for the insurance company to access your medical records," Diego explained smoothly. "Completely standard procedure. Carmen's cousin works in insurance, and she helped me find the best coverage." Olivia's suspicions deepened. "I'll need to read this carefully first, and I'd like to consult with my own insurance advisor." A flash of annoyance crossed Diego's face, quickly replaced with concern. "There's a special enrollment period that ends tomorrow, Mama. These rates won't be available again. I'm only trying to protect you." "Nevertheless, I'll read it myself," Olivia insisted, reaching for the document. Carmen entered the kitchen, immaculately dressed despite the early hour. "Good morning. What are we discussing so seriously?" "Insurance," Diego said tersely. "Mama doesn't trust my judgment." Carmen's eyebrows rose. "After all Diego has done to organize your finances, Olivia, that hurts him deeply." She sat down, taking Olivia's hand in hers. "Your son loves you. Everything he does is for your benefit." Olivia gently withdrew her hand. "I appreciate his concern, but I've managed my affairs for decades. I'm not signing anything I haven't thoroughly reviewed." An uncomfortable silence fell. Diego and Carmen exchanged a look. Olivia was beginning to recognize a silent communication that excluded her. "We understand," Carmen finally said, her voice gentle as if speaking to a child. "Perhaps you're feeling overwhelmed." Why don't we postpone the bank visit? I could prepare a nice bath for you instead. The bank visit stays on the schedule, Olivia said firmly, rising from her chair. I'll be ready in an hour, Diego. In her room, Olivia examined the document Diego had tried to get her to sign. It wasn't insurance paperwork at all, but a power of attorney form that would have given Diego complete control over all her financial and healthcare decisions. Her hands trembled as she locked the document in her bedside drawer. When she emerged an hour later, she found Diego on his phone in the living room. Yes, I understand, he was saying, his voice low. But there have been complications. No, I assure you it's still proceeding. By the end of next month at the latest. He ended the call abruptly when he noticed Olivia. Ready for the bank, Mama. I was just confirming our appointment. I wasn't aware we had an appointment, Olivia said. Diego smiled. I took the liberty of scheduling one with the investment advisor. I thought we could discuss diversifying your portfolio while we're there. The trip to the bank was nothing like Olivia had planned. Instead of meeting with her regular account manager, Maria Diego had arranged an appointment with Javier Suarez, an investment specialist she'd never met. Throughout the meeting, Diego dominated the conversation, describing their investment goals and repeatedly referencing Olivia's memory issues. My mother gets confused with financial details these days, he explained when Olivia questioned a statement about her risk tolerance. We've been working to simplify her affairs. Javier nodded sympathetically, directing his responses to Diego rather than Olivia. When she tried to inquire about recent withdrawals from her accounts, Diego smoothly interjected. Mama, remember we discussed the property tax payment and the special assessment for the building repairs. His expression conveyed gentle concern with an undertone of embarrassment, as if apologizing to Javier for her confusion. By the end of the appointment, Olivia felt thoroughly undermined. They left with brochures for investment products she had no interest in, and without her having gained access to her account information. I wanted to speak with Maria, she said as they walked to the car. Maria is on extended leave, Diego replied. Javier is handling her clients. He's much more knowledgeable about investment strategies for retirees. Back at the apartment, Olivia found several changes. The framed photo of Antonio that usually sat on her nightstand was missing. Her desk had been rearranged, the drawers organized differently. Carmen thought the apartment needed refreshing, Diego explained when Olivia mentioned the changes. The clutter was making the space feel cramped. Where are my photographs? My letters from Antonio? Safely stored in boxes in the closet, Diego assured her. Carmen thought they were collecting dust out in the open. Over the next few days, more items disappeared. Antonio's favorite chair declared too worn and replaced with a modern piece that Olivia found uncomfortable. Her collection of nurse figurines deemed outdated and packed away. Even her recipe box containing generations of family recipes was replaced with a digital tablet for easy viewing. Your recipe for paella is already loaded, Carmen announced proudly. No more squinting at those faded index cards. Olivia felt as if her home was being erased piece by piece. More disturbing still were the financial irregularities she began to notice. Bills she was certain she'd already paid arrived with late notices. Her pension deposit notification came, but when she asked Diego about withdrawing cash for her weekly expenses, he provided only a small fraction of what she requested. The rest needs to go toward the property tax bill, he explained. It's much higher this year. The property tax on this apartment hasn't changed significantly in 5 years, Olivia pointed out. Diego's expression hardened momentarily before softening into concern. Not this apartment, Mama. The house in Gracia. Don't you remember we discussed this last week? Olivia hadn't forgotten they had never discussed it, but Diego's confident assertion made her momentarily doubt herself. One afternoon, while Diego and Carmen were out, Olivia received an unexpected visitor. Sophia, the young mother who rented the house in Gracia, stood anxiously at the door. Senora Morales, I'm so sorry to disturb you, but there's been some confusion. A real estate agent came to the house yesterday saying it was going to be listed for sale next month. Olivia's blood ran cold. That's impossible. You have a 3-year lease. Sophia nodded emphatically. That's what I told him, but he insisted he had authorization from the owner. She hesitated. He mentioned your son Diego. He said Diego was handling the sale on your behalf. Thanking Sophia and assuring her the lease would be honored, Olivia closed the door and sank into a chair, her mind racing. Diego was planning to sell her home, Antonio's home, without her knowledge or consent. She was contemplating her next move when she heard a key in the lock. Diego and Carmen entered laden with shopping bags from expensive stores. "Mama, look what Carmen found for you." Diego held up an elegant but simplistic dress, clearly designed for someone much older and less active than Olivia. "For your comfort." Olivia forced a smile, deciding not to confront them about the house yet. She needed more information, more evidence before challenging Diego directly. That evening, while pretending to nap in her room, she overheard a revealing conversation between Diego and Carmen in the kitchen. "The real estate agent called," Diego said, his voice tense. "The tenant came to see Mama today." "Is that a problem?" Carmen asked. "It complicates things. I told him to wait until we had the power of attorney finalized before contacting the tenants." Carmen's voice dropped lower. "And how do you plan to get her to sign it? She's becoming suspicious." "Leave that to me," Diego replied. "I've arranged for a doctor's appointment next week. Dr. Vega understands our concerns about Mama's cognitive decline." "What cognitive decline? Your mother is sharp as a tack." "Dr. Vega doesn't know that," Diego said dismissively. "A diagnosis of early dementia would give us grounds for emergency guardianship if she refuses to cooperate." Olivia pressed a hand to her mouth, stifling a gasp. Her own son was plotting to have her declared incompetent. The betrayal cut deeper than she could have imagined. Later that night, searching for her address book to call Rafael, Olivia discovered it missing from her desk drawer. In its place was a business card for a high-end consignment boutique, Carmen's Closet Luxury Resale and Consignment. The address was in an upscale Barcelona neighborhood, and the card listed Carmen Alvarez as owner and curator. Puzzled, Olivia slipped the card into her pocket. Carmen had never mentioned owning a business. Where had the money come from to open such a shop? With a sinking feeling, Olivia suspected she knew exactly where the funding had originated. As the weeks progressed, Olivia's situation deteriorated rapidly. Her access to her own finances became increasingly restricted. Diego insisted on accompanying her everywhere, citing concern for her safety after her fall, though she had long since recovered. When she attempted to use her credit card at the pharmacy, she discovered it had been canceled. "For your protection," Diego explained. "There's been so much credit card fraud lately. I've arranged for all purchases to go through the supplemental card on my account. That way I can monitor for suspicious activity." Her meals became notably smaller and less nutritious. While Diego and Carmen dined on gourmet foods they brought home from expensive restaurants, Olivia was served small portions of bland pasta or simple sandwiches. "The doctor recommended a low-sodium, low-fat diet for you," Carmen would say when Olivia questioned the disparity. "We're just following medical advice." No such advice had been given, but whenever Olivia contradicted them, they exchanged concerned glances, as if her objections confirmed some private worry about her mental state. The isolation intensified. Her neighbor Maria knocked on the door one afternoon, concerned that she hadn't seen Olivia at their usual coffee meetup for weeks. "Mama isn't receiving visitors right now," Diego informed her firmly. "Doctor's orders. She needs complete rest." "But I only wanted to," Maria began. "Perhaps in a few weeks," Diego interrupted, closing the door before Maria could finish. Olivia's phone calls became mysteriously dropped whenever she tried to reach Rafael. When she questioned Diego, he suggested the building's structure interfered with the signal, a problem no one else seemed to experience. Her physical condition began to decline from the stress and inadequate nutrition. She lost weight rapidly, her clothes hanging loosely on her diminished frame. Sleep became elusive, her nights filled with anxiety about what Diego was planning. One morning, Olivia woke feeling lightheaded. Her heart medication bottle was empty, though she was certain it should have contained at least 2 weeks' worth of pills. "Diego?" She called, her voice weaker than she liked. "I need to refill my prescription. Can you drive me to the pharmacy?" Diego appeared at her door, frowning. "Today I have an important meeting, Mama." "It's my heart medication," Olivia explained. "I can't miss doses." "Why didn't you mention this earlier?" His tone was accusatory. "I'm trying to arrange our financial future, and these constant interruptions." "Diego, please, it's important." He sighed dramatically. "How much will it cost?" "About 20 euros, Olivia replied. 20 euros for pills." Diego ran a hand through his hair, the gesture reminiscent of his father. "I don't have cash on me, and the investment meeting is crucial." "My health is crucial," Olivia countered, a rare flash of her former authority emerging. Diego's expression hardened. "I'll see if Carmen can take you later." But Carmen, too, was unavoidably busy, with appointments relating to her boutique. The day passed with no medication and growing discomfort for Olivia. By evening, she was experiencing chest pains and dizziness. "I need my medication," she insisted when Diego returned. "If you won't take me, I'll call a taxi." "With what money?" Diego snapped, his facade of concern momentarily dropping. Seeing Olivia's shocked expression, he quickly softened. "I'm sorry, Mama. I'm just stressed about the investments. Of course your health comes first." He drove her to the pharmacy but insisted she use his credit card rather than her own funds. "Your pension needs to be conserved," he explained, "for the property taxes." Back home, Olivia decided to check her bank balance using her tablet. To her dismay, the banking app had been removed. When she tried to access the bank's website directly, she found the password had been changed. Increasingly desperate, Olivia waited until Diego and Carmen were asleep before attempting to use the landline phone to call Rafael. To her dismay, the line was dead. Diego had canceled the service, explaining later that nobody uses landlines anymore, and her mobile phone was more convenient, the same mobile phone that mysteriously malfunctioned whenever she tried to call her brother. The next morning, Olivia resolved to visit her neighbor Maria directly. While Diego was in the shower, she slipped out of the apartment and knocked on Maria's door. "Olivia!" Maria embraced her, pulling back to examine her with concern. "Dios mío, you've lost so much weight. Are you ill?" "Maria, I need your help," Olivia whispered urgently. "Can I use your phone to call my brother in Madrid? It's an emergency." "Of course, come in quickly." Maria ushered her inside. Olivia had just dialed Rafael's number when the door burst open. Diego stood there, his expression thunderous. "Mama, what are you doing? I've been worried sick." He turned to Maria, his voice dropping to a confidential tone. "I'm so sorry she disturbed you. She's been having episodes of confusion lately." "I'm not confused," Olivia protested as Diego took her arm firmly. "Maria, please tell Rafael." "She needs her rest," Diego interrupted, already steering Olivia toward the door. "The doctor is very concerned about her condition." Back in the apartment, Diego's gentle facade vanished. "What were you thinking, wandering off bothering the neighbors with your paranoia?" "I was calling Rafael," Olivia replied, summoning her dignity despite her racing heart. "I have concerns about how you're managing my finances." Diego's expression shifted to one of exaggerated patience. "Mama, we've been through this. Your finances are fine. It's your memory that concerns me." "My memory is excellent," Olivia insisted, "and I know my bank accounts should contain far more money than they currently do." Diego shook his head sadly. "This is exactly what the doctor warned us about. The confusion, the financial paranoia." He lowered his voice as if sharing a confidence. "Older people often become fixated on money, imagining it's being stolen." "I'm not imagining anything," Olivia said firmly. "I saw the transfers from my accounts, and I know about Carmen's boutique." A flash of genuine surprise crossed Diego's face before he recovered his composure. "Carmen's been planning that boutique for years with her own savings. Your accusations are hurtful, Mama, especially after everything we've done for you." Before Olivia could respond, Carmen entered the living room, immediately sensing the tension. "What's happened?" "Mama escaped to Maria's apartment while I was in the shower," Diego explained. "She's making accusations about our handling of her finances." Carmen's eyes widened in practiced concern. "Olivia, how could you think such things, after we've put our lives on hold to care for you?" Tears welled in her perfectly made-up eyes. "Diego, I told you we should have consulted the specialist sooner." "You're right," Diego nodded grimly. "I'll call Dr. Vega today. This can't continue." That afternoon, while Diego was on the phone in the other room, Carmen approached Olivia with a cup of tea. "You should rest," she advised, her voice gentle but firm. "The doctor will be here tomorrow to evaluate you." "Evaluate me for what?" Olivia asked, though she already knew the answer. "Your cognitive health," Carmen replied carefully. "Diego is very concerned about these episodes, the paranoia, the accusations." "I'm not paranoid," Olivia stated calmly. "I know exactly what's happening in this house." Carmen sat beside her, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "Olivia, I understand your concern, but you must trust Diego. He's doing what's best for the family. By draining my accounts, by planning to sell my home without my knowledge." A flicker of something guilt-fear crossed Carmen's face. "The boutique was a mistake," she admitted quietly. "I should have consulted you before accepting Diego's investment, but it will be profitable soon, and then every euro will be repaid." Olivia studied her daughter-in-law's face, sensing an opportunity. How much did he take from my accounts for this boutique? Carmen hesitated, glancing toward the room where Diego was still on the phone. $35,000 for the initial setup, she whispered. But the location is excellent, and the inventory is all designer pieces. The investment will pay off. And the other withdrawals? Where did that money go? Carmen looked uncomfortable. Diego has obligations, debts that needed to be settled urgently. What kind of debts? Olivia pressed. But Carmen had already said more than she intended. She rose abruptly, her demeanor cooling. You should focus on getting better, Olivia. Leave the financial matters to Diego. Left alone, Olivia's mind raced. Carmen's inadvertent confirmation of her suspicions was both validating and terrifying. Diego had stolen at least $35,000 for Carmen's boutique, plus more for mysterious debts. The full extent of his betrayal was still unclear, but one thing was certain: the situation was even worse than she had feared. That night, using Carmen's tablet while the couple was out for dinner, Olivia managed to access her email account. She composed an urgent message to Rafael. Rafael, I need your help. Diego is taking my money and planning to sell the house. He's trying to have me declared incompetent. Please come as soon as possible. Don't call, he's monitoring my phone. Love, Olivia. She sent the email hoping Rafael would see it before Diego discovered her actions and further restricted her communications. Her brother was her last hope for escape from this increasingly nightmarish situation. The following day, Dr. Vega arrived a young man Olivia had never met, with a too bright smile and a clipboard full of questions. Senora Morales, your son tells me you've been experiencing some confusion lately. He began, seated across from her in the living room, while Diego and Carmen hovered nearby. The only confusion is why my son thinks he can steal from me and sell my property without consequence, Olivia replied calmly. Dr. Vega nodded, making a note. And you believe your son is stealing from you. Can you tell me why you think that? No. Because I've seen the bank statements. I've discovered the transfers to accounts I don't recognize. I've heard him planning to sell my house in Gracia without my permission. Mama, we've discussed this, Diego interjected, his voice pained. The transfers were for your insurance policies and investment accounts. Everything is in your name. The doctor raised a hand to silence Diego. Let your mother speak, please. He turned back to Olivia. Do you know what day it is today? Wednesday, May 17th, 2023, Olivia answered promptly. And who is the current Prime Minister of Spain? Pedro Sanchez, Olivia responded, growing irritated with the basic questions. Dr. Vega continued with a series of cognitive assessment questions which Olivia answered easily. Her mind was sharp, her memory intact. The doctor seemed slightly disconcerted by her clear responses. Senora Morales appears oriented to time, place, and person. He eventually concluded, turning to Diego. Her cognitive function seems normal for her age. Diego's face tightened with barely concealed frustration. But what about her paranoia, the accusations, the escape attempt yesterday? Dr. Vega hesitated. I'd need to conduct more thorough testing to assess any paranoid ideation. For now, I'd recommend reducing stress and perhaps consulting with a geriatric psychiatrist for a more comprehensive evaluation. After the doctor left, the atmosphere in the apartment was tense. Diego barely concealed his anger at the inconclusive assessment. This doesn't change anything, he told Olivia when Carmen went to prepare lunch. If you continue with these wild accusations, we'll find another doctor who understands the situation better. The situation being that you want control of my assets, Olivia challenged him. Diego's expression darkened. Be careful, Mama. Your options are limited. Who do you think people will believe, a respected businessman or an elderly woman with memory issues? The threat was clear. Olivia realized she was fighting not just for her financial security, but potentially for her freedom. If Diego succeeded in having her declared incompetent, he could control every aspect of her life. That night, Olivia faked sleep while listening to Diego and Carmen argue in the kitchen. We need another approach, Diego hissed. That useless doctor wouldn't diagnose a cognitive issue when it's staring him in the face. Because there isn't one, Carmen replied, her voice surprisingly firm. Your mother is completely lucid, Diego. This plan won't work. Then we need a new plan, Diego insisted. The buyers won't wait forever, and Luis is pressuring me about the loan repayment. Who is Luis? Carmen asked, confusion evident in her tone. Diego hesitated. A business associate, from the Valencia project. A business associate who needs repayment of nearly 40,000 euros. Carmen sounded skeptical. What kind of business was this, Diego? It's complicated, he snapped. The point is, we need the house sold within the next month. The boutique isn't profitable yet, and we've nearly depleted Mama's accounts. There was a long pause before Carmen spoke again, her voice quieter. How much is left? About 4,000 in the main account. The pension will arrive next week, but that will barely cover what we owe for the May payment to Luis. And the house, how much do you expect to get for it? At least 1.2 million. After paying off the tenants to break their lease, settling Luis's debt, and investing in expanding your boutique, we should have enough to buy that villa in Valencia you've been wanting. And your mother? Carmen asked. What happens to her? Diego's voice hardened. She'll have enough from the sale to rent a small place. Or if she continues being difficult, there's always La Serenidad. The nursing home? Carmen sounded shocked. Diego, you can't be serious. Your own mother? It's a nice facility, Diego defended. And if she forces my hand, what choice do I have? I can't have her interfering with our plans, making accusations to anyone who'll listen. Olivia lay perfectly still, her heart pounding in her chest. Diego was not just planning to take her home and money, he was considering confining her to a nursing home against her will. The betrayal was complete, devastating in its totality. As she listened to them continue discussing her fate as if she were an inconvenient obstacle rather than a person, rather than Diego's mother who had sacrificed everything for him. Olivia made a silent vow. Somehow she would fight back. Somehow she would regain control of her life and hold Diego accountable for his betrayal. But first, she needed Rafael to receive her message. Everything depended on her brother, now her last hope for rescue from the nightmare her own son had created. The next morning, Olivia found herself facing a critical decision. She could continue to wait for Rafael's intervention, which might come too late, or she could confront Diego directly with what she knew. The risk was considerable. If he realized the extent of her knowledge, he might accelerate his plans to have her declared incompetent, or even moved to the nursing home. But the alternative was to remain passive while he systematically stripped her of everything she valued. She chose confrontation. After a breakfast during which Diego outlined his plans for her to downsize to somewhere more manageable, Olivia set her coffee cup down firmly. We need to talk about the house in Gracia, she said, her voice steady. And about my bank accounts. Diego and Carmen exchanged their now familiar glance of concern. What about them, Mama? I know you're planning to sell the house without my consent, Olivia stated calmly. Sophia the tenant told me about the real estate agent who visited. Diego's expression shifted momentarily before settling into practiced patience. There's been a misunderstanding. I was merely having the property evaluated for insurance purposes. And the $35,000 you took from my accounts to fund Carmen's boutique? Was that also a misunderstanding? Carmen paled visibly while Diego's eyes narrowed. Who have you been talking to? I have my sources, Olivia replied, unwilling to implicate Carmen. I also know about your debt to someone named Luis. Is that why you're so desperate to sell my home to pay off your gambling debts? Diego's facade cracked. You've been eavesdropping, he accused, his voice cold. Spying on private conversations. In my own home, yes, I've been listening, Olivia acknowledged. And what I've heard disgusts me. My own son plotting to steal my life savings to sell the home his father built. You don't understand. Diego began, his tone shifting to defensiveness. The business collapsed. The investors were demanding repayment. So you decided to steal from your mother, Olivia interrupted, her voice rising. To manipulate and isolate her, to have her declared incompetent so you could take everything. Carmen looked increasingly uncomfortable, avoiding Olivia's gaze. I've done everything for you. Diego suddenly exploded, the careful mask of filial concern completely discarded. Taken care of, you managed your finances, protected you from making poor decisions in your old age. And what did my father ever do for me? Left everything to you, not a single thought for his son's future. Your father built that house for our family, Olivia replied, maintaining her composure despite her racing heart. He expected you to build your own success, not steal ours. Diego's face contorted with rage. You always took his side, always favored Rafael. Perfect Rafael who could do no wrong while I was the disappointment. Rafael worked for what he has, Olivia countered. He didn't expect to be handed success. Diego slammed his hand on the table, causing the coffee cups to rattle. I deserved that house, after everything I did, everything I sacrificed. What sacrifices, Diego? Olivia challenged. What have you ever given up for someone else? Carmen finally spoke, her voice quiet. Diego, this isn't helping. Perhaps we should stay out of this, Diego snapped. He turned back to Olivia, his expression calculating. You think you figured everything out, don't you? But you're just a confused old woman. Who would believe these wild accusations? Your word against mine. I have evidence, Olivia bluffed. Bank statements, recordings, all safely stored with a trusted friend. Diego's confidence wavered momentarily before he regained his composure. More delusions, he said dismissively. This only confirms my concerns about your mental state. My mental state is perfectly fine, Olivia insisted. As Dr. Vega confirmed yesterday. Dr. Vega isn't a specialist, Diego countered, and he only conducted a basic assessment. A more thorough evaluation will show the truth. Olivia met her son's gaze directly. The truth is that you're a thief, Diego. Worse, you've betrayed the person who has loved you unconditionally since the day you were born. Something flashed in Diego's eyes, perhaps a moment of shame quickly suppressed. He stood abruptly. This conversation is over. You're clearly agitated, which isn't good for your health. I suggest you rest while Carmen and I discuss next steps. Next steps? Olivia repeated, alarm rising within her. For your care. Diego clarified, his voice smooth again. Clearly the current arrangement isn't working. You need more support than we can provide at home. The threat was thinly veiled. La Serenidad, the nursing home he had mentioned to Carmen. I'm not going anywhere, Olivia stated firmly. This is my home and I'm staying right here. Diego's smile didn't reach his eyes. We'll see about that. In the meantime, I'll be holding on to your medication, your phone, and your identification documents for safekeeping. As he left the room, Olivia realized the confrontation had backfired severely. Rather than shaming Diego into retreat, she had pushed him to accelerate his plans. The thought of being forcibly removed from her home and placed in a facility terrified her. Once there under Diego's guardianship, she might never regain her freedom or her assets. Carmen lingered after Diego departed, her expression troubled. He wasn't always like this, she said quietly. The business failure changed him. The pressure of the debts. What debts, Carmen? Olivia asked. Who is Luis? Carmen glanced toward the door nervously. A loan shark. Diego borrowed heavily to try to save the business, then turned to gambling to try to win enough to repay the loans. It didn't go well. And now he's stealing from me to fix his mistakes, Olivia concluded. Carmen had the grace to look ashamed. The boutique was my idea, but I never knew the money came from your accounts. Diego told me it was from a business settlement. Olivia studied her daughter-in-law, sensing potential leverage. Carmen, you could face criminal charges for receiving stolen funds. Financial elder abuse carries serious penalties. Fear flashed across Carmen's face. I didn't know, she whispered. You have to believe me. What I believe doesn't matter, Olivia replied. What matters is what the authorities will believe. Unless you help me. Carmen hesitated, clearly torn between loyalty to Diego and self-preservation. What could I do? Diego controls everything now. My brother Rafael, Olivia said urgently. Did he receive my email? Has Diego been intercepting my communications with him? After a moment's hesitation, Carmen nodded. Diego has your email password. He deleted a message to Rafael yesterday and sent a reply from your account saying everything was fine. Olivia's heart sank. Her last hope of rescue had been thwarted. Help me, Carmen, she pleaded. You know what Diego is doing is wrong. Criminal. If you stand by and allow it, you're equally responsible. Carmen stood smoothing her immaculate clothing with trembling hands. I need to think. This isn't what I wanted, Olivia. Not like this. Left alone, Olivia felt the walls closing in. Diego now knew she was actively opposing him, which made her situation even more precarious. Her confrontation had failed completely, leaving her more isolated and vulnerable than before. That evening, Diego returned with several pharmacy bags. Your new medication, Mama, he announced, laying out unfamiliar pills. The doctor called in prescriptions to help with your anxiety. I never agreed to any medication, Olivia protested. And Dr. Vega didn't prescribe anything yesterday. Not Dr. Vega, Diego corrected smoothly. Dr. Mendez, the specialist I consulted by phone today. He'll be conducting a full evaluation next week, but in the meantime, he felt these would help you remain calm. Olivia eyed the pills suspiciously. I won't take medication I don't need prescribed by a doctor I've never met. Diego's expression hardened. I was afraid you'd be difficult about this. Carmen, he called, could you join us? Carmen appeared, looking uncomfortable. Mama is refusing her medication. Diego explained, his voice dripping with concern. Would you explain why it's necessary? Carmen hesitated, avoiding Olivia's gaze. The doctor thinks it will help with the episodes. What episodes? Olivia demanded. I haven't had any episodes. I've simply discovered my son is stealing from me. Diego shook his head sadly. You see, the paranoia continues. He pushed the pills closer to Olivia. These will help Mama, trust me. Like I trusted you with my bank accounts, Olivia countered. No, Diego, I won't take these. Diego's facade of patience cracked. You will take them one way or another. Your behavior is becoming unmanageable and I won't have it. What will you do? Olivia challenged. Force them down my throat. The tension in the room was palpable. For a moment, Olivia feared Diego might actually attempt to force her to take the medication. But Carmen intervened. Perhaps we should wait for the full evaluation, she suggested. The doctor would want to see her natural behavior first, wouldn't he? Diego considered this, then reluctantly nodded. Fine, but the evaluation is scheduled for Monday and I expect full cooperation. He turned to Olivia, his expression cold. 3 more days, Mama. Then we'll have the medical documentation we need to make appropriate decisions about your care. The threat was clear. In 3 days, unless something drastically changed, Diego would have her declared incompetent and proceed with his plans unimpeded. That night, Olivia lay awake, the gravity of her situation weighing heavily upon her. In just 3 days, a doctor she'd never met would evaluate her mental competence, a doctor clearly aligned with Diego's interests. Once declared incompetent, she would lose all control over her life. Diego would have legal authority to sell her home, deplete her remaining assets, and even determine where she lived. The confrontation had been a critical error. By revealing how much she knew, she had accelerated Diego's timeline. Now she needed to act quickly, but her options were severely limited. Diego had taken her phone, her ID, even her bank cards. The apartment was essentially a prison, with Diego or Carmen constantly monitoring her movements. A soft knock at her bedroom door startled her. Olivia? Carmen whispered. Are you awake? Yes, Olivia replied cautiously. Carmen slipped into the room, closing the door silently behind her. We need to talk, but we have to be quiet. Diego is on the phone in the living room. Olivia sat up, studying Carmen's troubled expression in the dim light from the window. What is it? I've been thinking about what you said. Carmen began, her voice barely audible. About criminal charges. About being equally responsible. Hope flickered within Olivia. And I never intended things to go this far, Carmen confessed. The boutique was my dream, yes, but I didn't know Diego was stealing from you to fund it. I thought the money came from his business settlement. But now you know the truth, Olivia pointed out. Carmen nodded miserably. I'm afraid, Olivia. Diego has changed. The gambling debts, the desperation. He's not the man I married. Help me then, Olivia urged. Help me contact Raphael. He can bring a lawyer. Stop this before it goes any further. Carmen hesitated, glancing nervously toward the door. Diego monitors all communications. He checks my phone regularly. There must be some way, Olivia insisted. My neighbor, Maria. Diego has already spoken to her, Carmen interrupted. He told her you're suffering from dementia and prone to making up stories. Olivia's heart sank. Diego had been thorough in isolating her. What about the police? Without evidence, Carmen shook her head. Diego would convince them it's a family matter, a confused elderly woman. By the time they investigated, it would be too late. Olivia considered their limited options. Your boutique, she said suddenly. Could you take me there tomorrow? Tell Diego I'm interested in seeing it, that it might help restore my trust. Carmen frowned. Perhaps, but what good would that do? Diego would insist on coming with us. Not if you convince him it's an opportunity for woman time. A chance for us to bond, for you to help me understand that everything being done is for my benefit. Understanding dawned in Carmen's eyes. And once there must be a phone I could use, Olivia pressed. A computer. Some way to contact Raphael without Diego's knowledge. Carmen considered this, then slowly nodded. I could suggest it at breakfast. Say it might calm you to see how the investment is being used, make you feel included rather than stolen from. Will Diego believe you're taking my side against him? He might, Carmen replied, especially if I emphasize how it could help avoid complications with Monday's evaluation. Make you more cooperative. It was a thin hope, but the only one available. Olivia reached out, squeezing Carmen's hand gratefully. Thank you for this. Carmen's expression remained troubled. I'm not doing it just for you, she admitted. I need to protect myself too. If this ends badly, I don't want to face charges. Self-interest is still interest, Olivia replied pragmatically. As long as it gets me to a phone. After Carmen left, Olivia spent the remainder of the night planning what she would say to Raphael. He needed to come immediately, bringing a lawyer and perhaps the police. The evidence of financial abuse was in the bank statements and the transfer records to Carmen's business accounts in the real estate listing preparations for the house in Gracia. If they could access those records before Diego destroyed them, there would be ample proof of his crimes. Morning arrived with a sense of desperate anticipation. As planned, Carmen suggested the boutique visit over breakfast. I was thinking, Diego, she began carefully. Perhaps Olivia would feel better about everything if she saw the boutique. How professional it is, how the investment is being well used. Diego looked skeptical. Is that necessary? It might help with Monday's evaluation, Carmen pointed out. If Olivia feels included rather than victimized, she might be more cooperative with Dr. Mendez. Diego considered this, clearly weighing the potential benefits against the risks. And if she tries to make a scene, starts telling customers wild stories about theft and betrayal. I'll present her as my mother-in-law who's advising on the vintage collection, Carmen assured him. A brief visit, just the two of us. Some female bonding time. Olivia remained silent, afraid that showing too much interest might arouse Diego's suspicions. After what seemed an eternity, Diego nodded reluctantly. Fine, but no more than an hour. And Mama, he turned to Olivia, his expression stern. This doesn't change anything. Monday's evaluation will proceed as planned. I understand, Olivia replied meekly, playing the role of the subdued, compliant mother. As Carmen helped her prepare for the outing, she whispered urgent instructions. There's a staff phone in the back room. I'll create a distraction with a customer while you make your call. Be quick, no more than 3 minutes. Diego watched them leave with obvious misgivings, his final warning hanging in the air. 1 hour, Carmen, not a minute more. The boutique was indeed impressive, a elegantly appointed space in an upscale shopping district filled with designer clothing and accessories. Under different circumstances, Olivia might have been proud of Carmen's entrepreneurial vision. Now she saw only the fruits of her stolen funds. As promised, Carmen created a diversion, engaging an elderly customer in an extended discussion about vintage Chanel, while discreetly gesturing Olivia toward the back room. Heart racing, Olivia slipped behind the counter and through a curtained doorway to a small office area. The staff phone sat on a desk cluttered with inventory lists and receipts. With trembling fingers, Olivia dialed Raphael's number, praying he would answer. Hola! Her brother's familiar voice, after so many weeks of isolation, brought tears to her eyes. Raphael, it's Olivia, she whispered urgently. I don't have much time. I need your help. Olivia, what's wrong? You sound terrible. As quickly and clearly as possible, Olivia explained the situation, Diego's theft, the planned sale of the house, the impending competency evaluation that would strip her of all control. Dios mío, Raphael breathed. I knew something wasn't right when I got that strange email from you saying everything was fine. It didn't sound like you at all. Diego sent that, Olivia explained. He's intercepting all my communications. Raphael, please, you must come immediately. Bring a lawyer, someone who specializes in elder abuse cases. I'll leave within the hour, Raphael promised. My friend Mateo is an attorney who handles exactly these situations. Where are you now? At Carmen's boutique, but will be returning to my apartment soon. Diego watches me constantly. Give me the boutique address, Raphael instructed. I'll come directly there if I can reach Barcelona in time. Otherwise, I'll come to your apartment tonight. Olivia quickly provided the address, then added, Be careful when you arrive. Diego is desperate. The evaluation is scheduled for Monday. If he succeeds, he'll have complete control. That won't happen, Raphael assured her. Stay strong, Hermana. Help is coming. The call ended as Carmen appeared at the doorway, eyes wide with alarm. Diego just called, she whispered. He's on his way here. Says he changed his mind about letting us come alone. Olivia's heart raced. How long do we have? Minutes at most. He sounded suspicious. Carmen glanced nervously toward the front of the store. Did you reach your brother? Yes, he's coming with a lawyer. Olivia clutched Carmen's arm. When he arrives, will you help us confirm what Diego has done? Carmen hesitated only briefly before nodding. I'll tell the truth, but for now we need to act normal. Diego can't suspect anything has changed. They returned to the main area of the boutique just as Diego entered, his expression tense and suspicious. Enjoying the tour, Mama? He asked, eyes scanning the space as if searching for evidence of betrayal. Carmen has created something impressive, Olivia replied truthfully. She has a real talent for business. Diego seemed momentarily disarmed by her positive response. Yes, well, it's time to return home. You need your rest before Monday. The drive back to the apartment was tense with unspoken accusations and suspicions. Diego kept glancing at Olivia in the rearview mirror as if expecting her to suddenly reveal her secret communication. Carmen maintained a stream of inconsequential chatter about the boutique customer preferences, upcoming fashion trends, anything to fill the dangerous silence. Back at the apartment, Diego's controlling behavior intensified. He insisted Olivia take an afternoon nap, effectively confining her to her bedroom. Through the door, she could hear him questioning Carmen intently about every moment of their boutique visit. Did she speak to anyone? Use any phones? Did any customers seem to know her? Carmen's responses were steady, reassuring. She was with me the entire time, Diego. She was quite impressed with the business, actually. I think she's beginning to understand that the investment was worthwhile. Olivia sat on the edge of her bed, time crawling by with excruciating slowness. Rafael had promised to come immediately, but Madrid was hours away even by high-speed train. Would he arrive before Diego implemented the next phase of his plan? And what exactly was that plan? As if in answer to her unspoken question, she heard Diego on the phone in the living room, his voice lowered but still audible through the thin walls. Dr. Mendez, yes, it's Diego Morales. About my mother's evaluation. Yes, I know it's scheduled for Monday, but there's been a development. She's becoming increasingly agitated, potentially dangerous to herself. Yes, I understand it's unusual, but given the circumstances, tomorrow morning would be perfect. Thank you, doctor. We'll expect you at 9. Olivia's blood ran cold. Diego had moved up the evaluation. Rafael might not arrive in time. By tomorrow morning, she could be declared incompetent, her fate sealed by a doctor she'd never met acting on Diego's manipulative lies. The walls of her bedroom felt suddenly like those of a prison cell closing in around her with each passing moment. Her son, her own flesh and blood, was systematically destroying her life, stealing her financial security, her home, and now potentially her freedom. As darkness fell, Olivia gazed out her window at the lights of Barcelona glimmering in the distance. Somewhere out there, Rafael was racing against time to reach her. But would he arrive before Diego's plan reached its conclusion? The next 12 hours would determine not just her financial future, but her very autonomy as a human being. The betrayal of trust was complete. Now her only hope lay in the justice that might come with the dawn. As dawn broke over Barcelona, Olivia had barely slept. The knowledge that Dr. Mendez would arrive at 9 to evaluate her, likely declaring her incompetent based on Diego's manipulative preparation, left her paralyzed with anxiety. Once that declaration was made, she would lose all legal authority over her life. Diego would control her finances, her living situation, even her medical care. The house in Gracia would be sold, her remaining funds drained, and she might well find herself confined to La Serenidad nursing home indefinitely. Through her bedroom wall, she could hear Diego's voice speaking rapidly on the phone. Everything's arranged, he was saying. The doctor will provide the assessment we need. Yes, the real estate agent is prepared to move quickly once we have guardianship. I understand your concerns, Luis, but by next week you'll have your money plus interest. Olivia's hands trembled as she dressed. She chose her most dignified outfit, a tailored navy dress that Antonio had always admired, and styled her hair carefully. If she was to be evaluated, she would present herself as the capable, intelligent woman she was, not the confused, doddering figure Diego had invented. At precisely 8 o'clock, there was a sharp knock at the apartment door. Olivia froze, heart racing. Dr. Mendez wasn't due for another hour. She heard Diego's annoyed voice. Who could that be so early? Footsteps crossed the living room, followed by the sound of the door opening. Then a familiar voice that made Olivia's heart leap with hope. Good morning, Diego. It's been a long time. Rafael. Diego's shock was evident in his voice. What are you doing here? I came to see Olivia. I've been concerned about her. She's resting, Diego replied quickly. And this isn't a good time. We have a doctor's appointment later. I'm aware of that, Raphael said coolly. That's precisely why I'm here. Olivia emerged from her bedroom to find her brother standing in the entryway. At 62, Raphael remained tall and distinguished. His silver hair neatly combed his posture straight. The resemblance to Antonio was striking, the same steady gaze, the same quiet dignity. Behind him stood a younger man with a serious expression carrying a leather briefcase. Raphael. Olivia hurried toward her brother, embracing him tightly. Thank God you've come. Raphael hugged her, then held her at arm's length, his expression darkening as he assessed her gaunt appearance. Olivia, what's happened to you? You've lost so much weight. She's been unwell, Diego interjected smoothly. That's why we've arranged for a medical evaluation today. A psychiatric evaluation, Raphael corrected, his gaze never leaving Diego. To have her declared incompetent. Yes, I know all about it. Diego's confident facade faltered momentarily. There's been some confusion. Mama has been experiencing episodes of paranoia, making wild accusations. Truthful accusations, Raphael interrupted firmly. About missing funds, a boutique funded with stolen money, and plans to sell her home without consent. Carmen emerged from the kitchen, her face pale. How do you know about the boutique? Olivia called me yesterday, Raphael explained. And I've spent the night with my friend Mateo here reviewing bank records, property documents, and communications that paint a very disturbing picture. Diego's expression hardened. Whatever Mama has told you, it's the product of confusion. Her memory is failing. Her memory is perfect, Raphael countered, and we have the documentation to prove it. The man with the briefcase stepped forward. Mateo Hernandez, he introduced himself. Attorney specializing in elder law and financial abuse cases. He handed Diego a business card. I've prepared an initial legal assessment based on the financial records we've obtained. Diego glanced at the card, his confidence visibly wavering. What financial records? You have no right to access my mother's accounts. As her brother, I have no rights, Raphael agreed. But the bank has a duty to investigate potential fraud, especially when an elderly customer's account shows suspicious patterns of withdrawals immediately following the addition of a new authorized user. Mateo opened his briefcase, extracting a folder. The bank's fraud department has provided a complete transaction history for the past 4 months. We also have documentation from the commercial property registry regarding Carmen's closet, showing the source of funding and dates of establishment coinciding perfectly with major withdrawals from Senora Morales' accounts. Diego's face flushed with anger. This is a family matter. You have no right to interfere. Elder abuse is not a family matter, Mateo replied calmly. It's a criminal offense. Carmen sank into a chair, her composure crumbling. I didn't know, she whispered. I didn't know the money was stolen. Diego shot her a venomous look. Don't say another word, Carmen. Raphael turned to Olivia, his expression gentle. Pack a bag, Hermana. You're coming with me. She's not going anywhere, Diego declared, moving to block the hallway. The doctor is coming to evaluate her condition, and until then... The doctor won't be coming, Mateo interrupted, producing another document from his briefcase. This is a cease and desist letter addressed to Dr. Mendez, informing him of the potential legal consequences of participating in a fraudulent competency evaluation. My associate delivered it to his office at 7 this morning. Diego's face drained of color. You can't do that. We already have, Raphael said simply. He turned to Olivia. Go pack what you need. You're safe now. As Olivia moved toward her bedroom, Diego made a desperate lunge to block her path. This is ridiculous. Mama needs care supervision. The only thing she needs, Raphael said, his voice hardening as he firmly gripped Diego's arm, is protection from you. Diego yanked his arm away. You've always been her favorite, he spat bitterly. Perfect Raphael who could do no wrong. Well, where were you these past months while I was caring for her day and night? Caring for her? Raphael's voice rose with controlled fury. You've been systematically stealing from her, isolating her, undermining her health, and planning to have her declared incompetent, all to get your hands on her home and what remains of her money. You don't understand, Diego insisted, his voice taking on a desperate edge. I have debts, obligations. The business collapsed and I had nowhere else to turn. So you turned on your mother. Raphael's disgust was palpable. The woman who gave you life, who sacrificed everything for you. While the brothers confronted each other, Olivia quickly gathered her essentials, clothing, medications, and the few personal items Diego hadn't yet disposed of. When she returned to the living room, she found Mateo on the phone speaking rapidly in legal terminology, while Rafael continued his confrontation with Diego. "We've contacted the tenants at the Gracia house," Rafael was saying. "They confirmed the unauthorized visits from a real estate agent claiming to have your authorization to list the property." "The property needs to be sold," Diego maintained stubbornly. "It's too large for Mama to manage. I was acting in her best interest." "And the proceeds?" Rafael challenged. "Were those also going to be managed in her best interest, or were they destined for Luis, your gambling creditor, and Carmen's failing boutique?" Diego's expression registered shock. "How do you know about Luis?" "Carmen told me everything yesterday," Olivia said quietly, rejoining the group. "About the boutique, about the gambling debts. She didn't want to be implicated in your crimes." Diego turned to Carmen with a look of betrayal. "You spoke to her behind my back." Carmen avoided his gaze. "This has gone too far, Diego. I never agreed to having your mother declared incompetent or placed in a nursing home." "La Serenidad," Rafael repeated, his voice tight with anger. "You were planning to confine her to a nursing home against her will." "Only if necessary," Diego defended weakly. "If she continued to interfere with our plans." Mateo ended his call, addressing the room. "The police will be here shortly to take statements. In the meantime," he turned to Diego, "I strongly advise you not to leave the premises or attempt to destroy any evidence." Diego's demeanor shifted from defensive to calculating. "What evidence? It's my mother's word against mine. An elderly woman who's been confused, imagining conspiracies. Plus bank records, property documents, witness statements from the tenants, Carmen's testimony, and the boutique's financial records," Mateo enumerated calmly. "The police financial crimes unit is quite efficient at connecting these dots." Diego's facade finally cracked completely. "I needed the money," he shouted. "Luis was threatening me. What was I supposed to do?" "Not steal from your mother," Rafael replied simply. "Not betray the person who has loved you unconditionally your entire life." There was a moment of heavy silence, broken only when Carmen began to weep softly. "I'm sorry, Olivia," she whispered. "I never meant for it to go this far." Olivia approached her daughter-in-law, her expression somber but not unkind. "Your cooperation now will help determine your future, Carmen. Think carefully about where your loyalties should lie." Another knock at the door announced the arrival of 2 police officers, one male and one female, both with the serious expressions of professionals accustomed to family conflicts. "Inspectors Vidal and Torres," the female officer introduced them, showing her identification. "We're responding to a report of financial elder abuse and attempted fraud." As Mateo began briefing the officers, Diego made a sudden, desperate move toward the door. Inspector Vidal blocked his path with a firm hand. "Senor Morales, I suggest you remain here while we sort this out." Over the next 2 hours, the small apartment became a flurry of activity. Statements were taken, documents examined, phones checked for incriminating messages. Throughout it all, Olivia sat with quiet dignity, answering questions clearly and precisely, demonstrating a memory and mental acuity that decisively refuted Diego's claims of cognitive decline. By noon, the inspectors had collected sufficient evidence to justify further investigation. "We'll need all parties to come to the station to formalize their statements," Inspector Torres announced. "Senor Morales, you'll be detained for questioning regarding the financial transactions and the attempt to fraudulently obtain guardianship." As Diego was led away, his expression a mixture of rage and disbelief, he turned to Olivia one last time. "I'm still your son," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "Doesn't that count for anything?" Olivia met his gaze steadily. "It counted for everything, Diego. That's why your betrayal cut so deeply." With Diego gone, Carmen broke down completely. "What will happen to me?" she asked between sobs. "The boutique, my future." "That depends on your cooperation," Mateo explained. "Full disclosure about your involvement and testimony against Diego could result in more lenient treatment." "I'll tell them everything," Carmen promised, wiping her tears. "I never wanted any of this." As the police escorted Carmen out for her formal statement, Rafael put his arm around Olivia's shoulders. "It's over, Hermana. You're safe now." Olivia leaned against her brother, the full emotional weight of the past months finally crashing over her. "How did this happen, Rafael? How did my own son become capable of such betrayal?" Raphael had no easy answer, only the comfort of his presence and the promise that she would never again face such threats alone. The days following Diego's detention unfolded in a blur of police interviews, legal consultations, and medical examinations. Olivia, now staying in Raphael's hotel suite, began the slow process of recovering her health and reclaiming control of her life. Dr. Elena Fuentes, a respected geriatrician recommended by Mateo, conducted a thorough examination and pronounced Olivia physically undernourished but otherwise healthy, with no signs of cognitive impairment whatsoever. "What you've experienced is criminal neglect and psychological abuse," Dr. Fuentes explained, her kind eyes filled with professional concern. "The weight loss, anxiety, and sleep disturbances are all normal responses to prolonged stress and inadequate nutrition. With proper care, you should recover completely." Meanwhile, the financial investigation revealed the full extent of Diego's theft. Over 4 months, he had systematically drained nearly $93,000 from Olivia's accounts, $35,000 for Carmen's boutique, $42,000 to repay gambling debts to Luis Mendoza, identified as a known loan shark with a criminal record, and the remainder for luxury purchases and daily expenses. "He was living entirely off your money," Mateo explained during a meeting at his office overlooking Plaza Catalunya. "The bank has flagged all the suspicious transactions and is working to determine which can be reversed or recovered." "And the house?" Olivia asked, her greatest concern still the home Antonio had built with his own hands. "Secure," Raphael assured her. "We've filed legal notices preventing any sale or transfer without your explicit notarized consent. The tenants have been informed of the situation and are relieved to know their lease remains valid." Carmen, true to her word, provided a comprehensive statement detailing Diego's schemes. Though she maintained she had been unaware of the source of the boutique funding, initially she admitted to later suspicions that she had chosen to ignore out of self-interest. "I wanted to believe him," she told the investigators, her glamorous facade replaced by genuine remorse. "When I finally understood the truth, I was already implicated. I was afraid of losing everything." Mateo arranged for a forensic accountant to examine Carmen's business records, which revealed the boutique was actually losing money despite its prestigious location and inventory. Like many of Diego's ventures, it had been built on appearances rather than sound business principles. "What will happen to Diego?" Olivia asked one evening as she and Raphael shared a quiet dinner in the hotel restaurant. Raphael sighed heavily. "The evidence against him is substantial. Financial elder abuse fraud, attempted coercion, unauthorized use of financial instruments. Mateo says he's likely facing criminal charges that could result in significant penalties." "Prison," Olivia's heart constricted despite everything Diego had done. "Possibly," Raphael acknowledged gently, "though first-time offenders often receive suspended sentences if restitution is made, but that depends on his cooperation and acceptance of responsibility." Olivia nodded slowly, processing this information. "And Carmen?" "Lesser charges given her cooperation. Probably probation and mandatory financial ethics training." Raphael studied his sister's expression carefully. "How do you feel about all this, Olivia?" She considered the question seriously. "Sad, relieved, betrayed, grateful." She met her brother's gaze. "All at once in waves that come and go." "That's entirely normal," Raphael assured her. "You've suffered a profound trauma, not just financial loss, but the shattering of trust in your own child." "Antonio always worried about Diego's character," Olivia confessed quietly. "His focus on money above all else, his sense of entitlement. I defended him, made excuses. Perhaps if I had been firmer, set clearer boundaries." "This is not your fault," Raphael said firmly. "Diego made his choices as an adult. The responsibility is his alone." As the investigation progressed, more disturbing details emerged. Diego had researched early-onset dementia symptoms online, clearly planning to coach Dr. Mendez on what to look for during the evaluation. He had contacted several real estate agents, promising a quick sale of the Gracia house as soon as he obtained guardianship. Most disturbingly, he had inquired about advance payment for a 1-year placement at La Serenidad nursing home, the minimum commitment required. "He was planning to institutionalize you indefinitely," Mateo explained grimly during their next meeting. "The facility requires substantial upfront payment, which would have come from the house sale." The revelation left Olivia breathless with horror. "My own son," she whispered, "planning to lock me away." Inspector Torres, who had taken a personal interest in the case, arrived with additional information about Luis Mendoza. He's a known figure in underground gambling circles, she explained. Diego accumulated substantial debts over a 6-month period. When he couldn't pay, Mendoza began applying pressure. Nothing overtly violent, but threats were implied. That's why Diego was so desperate for the house sale, Rafael realized. The $42,000 he already took from Olivia's accounts wasn't enough. Mendoza expected full payment plus 50% interest, Torres confirmed. Approximately $200,000 total. We're investigating him separately for usury and extortion. Throughout the investigation, Olivia maintained her dignity, answering questions clearly and providing necessary documentation. Her cooperation, combined with her obvious mental acuity, thoroughly discredited Diego's claims about her cognitive state. 2 weeks after Rafael's arrival, the investigative phase was largely complete. Olivia, steadily regaining her strength with proper nutrition and reduced stress, faced another difficult decision: whether to press criminal charges against her son. You have every right to pursue the full extent of legal consequences, Mateo advised during a consultation in his office. The evidence supports multiple serious charges. What would that mean for Diego? Olivia asked. Given the amount stolen and the particularly egregious breach of trust, he could face up to 5 years in prison, though as a first-time offender, he might receive a lesser sentence. Olivia sat quietly for a long moment, weighing justice against mercy, accountability against compassion. If I choose not to press criminal charges, what are my alternatives? A civil settlement, Mateo explained. We would require full restitution of all stolen funds plus interest and legal costs. Diego would sign a legally binding agreement acknowledging his actions and accepting specific restrictions. No contact without your explicit consent, no involvement in your financial affairs, regular monitoring of his compliance. And if he violates those terms, the criminal charges would be reinstated immediately, Mateo assured her. This approach holds him accountable while giving him an opportunity to avoid imprisonment, if that's your preference. Olivia turned to Rafael. What do you think, hermano? Rafael chose his words carefully. Diego has committed serious crimes that have caused you tremendous suffering. He deserves consequences. But what those consequences should be, that's a decision only you can make. Whatever you choose, I'll support you. After another moment of reflection, Olivia nodded decisively. I want the civil settlement. Not because Diego deserves mercy, but because I don't want prison to absolve him of his responsibility to make amends. Very well, Mateo agreed. I'll draft the agreement immediately. 3 days later, Olivia sat straight-backed in Mateo's conference room, awaiting the arrival of Diego and his attorney. Rafael sat beside her, a steadfast presence of support. Mateo had arranged this meeting to present the civil settlement terms, Diego's last opportunity to avoid criminal prosecution. When Diego entered, Olivia barely recognized him. Just 3 weeks in detention had transformed her once polished son into a haggard stranger. His designer clothes had been replaced by simple worn attire. His confident posture now stooped with defeat. Behind him followed a thin, nervous-looking man introduced as Señor Gomez, his court-appointed lawyer. Diego's eyes met Olivia's briefly before dropping to the floor, unable to maintain contact in the face of her quiet dignity. Please be seated, Mateo began formally. We're here to discuss the terms under which Señora Morales is willing to forego criminal prosecution in favor of a civil settlement. Diego's head jerked up in surprise. No criminal charges. That possibility remains on the table, Mateo clarified, contingent upon your full acceptance of and compliance with the settlement terms. Señor Gomez nodded eagerly. My client is very interested in resolving this matter civilly. Mateo distributed copies of a substantial document. The agreement contained several key provisions. First, full acknowledgement of all unauthorized transactions totaling $93.27 taken from Señora Morales' accounts. Diego winced visibly at the precise figure, the full accounting of his betrayal, reduced to an undeniable number. Second, a repayment plan requiring monthly installments of $1,500 until the full amount plus 5% annual interest is repaid. $500 per month, Diego protested. That's impossible. I have no income, no assets. You have a degree in business administration and years of professional experience, Rafael interrupted coldly. You can find employment and meet your obligations just as every other responsible adult does. Diego subsided chastened. Third, Mateo continued, A formal relinquishment of any claim to guardianship, power of attorney, or other authority over Senora Morales' person or assets, now or in the future. Diego nodded glumly. Fourth, a restraining order prohibiting contact with Senora Morales, except with her explicit written consent to be renewed monthly at her discretion. But she's my mother, Diego objected weakly. A mother you were willing to institutionalize for financial gain, Rafael reminded him sharply. Fifth, Mateo pressed on, regular monitoring of your financial activities to ensure compliance, including quarterly reviews of your account's employment status and living arrangements. This is intrusive, Senor Gomez noted with a frown. Less intrusive than prison, Mateo countered smoothly. Where financial activities are monitored constantly. Senor Gomez conferred briefly with Diego before nodding reluctantly. Continue. Finally, and most importantly, a clear understanding that any violation of these terms, any attempt to circumvent the agreement, or any future actions against Senora Morales' interests will result in the immediate reinstatement of all criminal charges with this signed confession as primary evidence. Diego paled visibly. You're asking me to sign a confession? We're offering you an opportunity to make amends without imprisonment, Mateo corrected. The alternative is prosecution for elder financial abuse, fraud, coercion, and attempted false imprisonment charges that carry substantial prison terms. A heavy silence fell over the room. Diego stared at the documents before him, the full weight of his actions and their consequences finally inescapable. May I speak with my mother? He asked quietly. Alone. Absolutely not. Rafael began protectively, but Olivia raised her hand. It's all right, Rafael. She turned to Diego. You may say what you need to say here in front of everyone. Diego seemed to shrink further, but nodded. Mama, I don't know how to explain what happened. The business collapse, the debts to Luis III was desperate. I convinced myself I was only borrowing the money that I'd replace it once things turned around. And the plan to have me declared incompetent, Olivia asked, her voice steady. To sell the home your father built, to place me in La Serenidad against my will, were those also desperate measures you planned to undo once things turned around? Diego had no answer, his gaze dropping once more to the table. I've had 3 weeks to reflect on how my son became capable of such calculated cruelty. Olivia continued, her dignity unwavering. I remember how your father worried about your character, your focus on appearance over substance, your sense of entitlement, your inability to accept responsibility for failures. Papa never believed in me, Diego muttered resentfully. He always favored Rafael. Your father loved you unconditionally, Olivia corrected firmly. But he saw the path you were choosing and feared where it would lead. How prophetic his concerns proved to be. Diego's shoulders slumped further. What do you want from me, Mama? Accountability, Olivia answered simply. Recognition of the harm you've caused. A commitment to change. Not promises or excuses, those I've heard throughout your life, but genuine, sustained effort to become a man your father would have been proud of. For the first time, tears appeared in Diego's eyes. I don't know if I can. He admitted a rare moment of honesty. That, Olivia said quietly, is the first truthful thing you've said in months. After a moment of weighted silence, Diego reached for a pen. I'll sign the agreement. As he scrawled his signature on each indicated page, Olivia felt no triumph, no vindication, only a profound sadness for what had been lost, perhaps irretrievably. The son she had raised the family, they had been the trust that had been shattered beyond simple repair. When the signing was complete, Diego looked up at her one last time. Is this goodbye, Mama? Olivia considered the question carefully. That depends entirely on you, Diego. Not on your words or promises, but on your actions in the months and years ahead. The door remains unlocked, but you must earn the right to walk through it. As Diego was led away by his attorney, Rafael squeezed Olivia's hand supportively. You handled that with remarkable grace. Not grace, Olivia corrected softly. Necessity. Anger and bitterness would only complete what Diego began, the destruction of my peace and well-being. Mateo gathered the signed documents, his expression respectful. The legal process is complete, but I suspect the emotional journey is just beginning. Yes, Olivia agreed. But at least now I can walk that journey as myself, not as the diminished, controlled person Diego tried to create. Eos Madrid apartment, gazing out at the city's distinctive skyline. The past weeks had brought rapid improvement in her health. Proper nutrition and freedom from constant stress had restored much of her physical vitality. Her weight had returned to normal. Her sleep improved her mind clear and focused. The movers have confirmed they'll deliver your belongings next Tuesday, Raphael announced, joining her at the window. The storage company did an inventory everything from the Barcelona apartment that was worth keeping. Olivia nodded appreciatively. After much consideration, she had decided to sell her Barcelona apartment and relocate permanently to Madrid. Raphael had generously offered his guest suite until she found a place of her own, though he insisted there was no rush. "And the house in Gracia?" she asked. "The tenant's lease has 3 years remaining," Raphael reminded her. "After that, you can decide whether to sell or return there yourself." Olivia smiled softly. "I don't think I'll return to Barcelona. Too many painful memories now." The decision to move had been liberating, a clean break from the scene of Diego's betrayal, a fresh start in a city where she could rebuild her life without constant reminders of what had been lost. Carmen had reached out once, sending a carefully worded letter of apology along with financial records for the boutique which was being liquidated to contribute toward the restitution. Her legal situation remained unresolved, though Mateo expected she would receive probation given her eventual cooperation. As for Diego, he had begun making the required monthly payments, though whether from genuine remorse or fear of imprisonment remained unclear. Olivia had not yet found it in her heart to grant permission for direct contact, though she regularly received updates on his compliance through Mateo. Elena called. Raphael mentioned referring to Dr. Fuentes, who had become both Olivia's physician and friend. "She's invited us to dinner on Saturday with her husband. She thinks you'll enjoy meeting him. He's a retired literature professor." "That sounds lovely," Olivia agreed, grateful for the expanding circle of connections Raphael had helped her establish in Madrid. The doorbell rang, announcing the arrival of Isabel, Raphael's daughter-in-law, with her children, Olivia's grandnieces, Lucia and Sophia, ages 6 and 4. The girls burst into the apartment with the exuberance of youth, rushing to embrace their great-aunt. "Tia Olivia, we brought you cookies," Lucia announced proudly, presenting a slightly crumpled paper bag. "And drawings," Sophia added, waving colorful papers. Olivia accepted both offerings with genuine delight. "What thoughtful gifts shall we have? Cookies and milk while you tell me about your drawings?" As the girls settled at the kitchen table, chattering excitedly about their artwork, Isabel approached Olivia with a warm hug. "You look wonderful," she observed. "Madrid agrees with you." "New beginnings agree with me," Olivia corrected gently. "And family, true family." The afternoon passed pleasantly, with the children's energy and innocent affection providing a potent antidote to lingering sadness. When they finally departed, promising to return for Sunday lunch, Olivia found herself reflecting on how quickly life could transform from isolation and betrayal to connection and support in just a few short months. That evening, as she and Raphael shared a quiet dinner, he raised the subject that had been increasingly on Olivia's mind. "Have you thought more about what kind of place you'd like to find here in Madrid?" he asked. "There's no rush, of course. You're welcome here as long as you wish." Olivia considered the question seriously. "Something modest but bright, perhaps near the Retiro Park where I could walk daily. A place that's entirely mine where I can rebuild my independence." Raphael nodded approvingly. "I've asked a friend in real estate to watch for suitable properties. When you're ready, she'll have some options for you to consider." "Thank you, Raphael. Not just for the housing help, but for everything." Olivia reached across the table to grasp her brother's hand. "Without you, I might still be trapped in that nightmare." "You would have found a way," Raphael assured her. "You've always been the strongest of us." Olivia smiled, recognizing the truth in his words. Not vanity, but an honest assessment of the resilience she had demonstrated throughout this ordeal. "Perhaps strength runs in the family. Antonio would be proud of how you handled everything." "Antonio would be proud of you," Raphael corrected. "Maintaining your dignity through such betrayal, choosing justice tempered with mercy, refusing to let bitterness consume you." The mention of Antonio brought a familiar ache, but now mixed with comfort rather than just loss. "I've been thinking about him so much lately," Olivia confessed, "wondering what he would make of all this." "He would say exactly what he always said," Raphael responded warmly, "that you are the wisest, most compassionate person he ever knew." The conversation shifted to practical matters, the upcoming appointment with Mateo to finalize the sale of the Barcelona apartment, the quarterly review of Diego's compliance with the settlement terms, plans for Raphael's upcoming birthday celebration. Later, as Olivia prepared for bed in the comfortable guest suite that had become her temporary home, she found herself contemplating the journey ahead. At 68, she was beginning again not the retirement she and Antonio had envisioned, but a new chapter with unexpected possibilities. Her financial situation, while impacted by Diego's theft, remained stable. The restitution payments would eventually restore what had been taken. The Barcelona apartment would sell for a reasonable sum, providing funds for a new home in Madrid. Her pension continued to provide for daily needs. She was by any measure more fortunate than many who suffered similar betrayals. More importantly, the experience had clarified what truly mattered: not possessions or properties, but trust, dignity, and genuine connection. She had lost a son, at least for now, but rediscovered the strength of other bonds with Raphael, with new friends like Elena, with Isabel, and her delightful children. 1 year later, Olivia stood in the kitchen of her new apartment near Retiro Park, preparing paella for Sunday lunch with Raphael's family. The space was smaller than her Barcelona home, but filled with light and carefully chosen furnishings, some from her previous life, others newly acquired to represent her fresh start. The doorbell rang precisely at 1 o'clock. Raphael, Elena, now a close friend, Isabel and the children arrived bearing wine, dessert, and the happy chaos of family gathering. Tia Olivia, Lucia, and Sophia rushed to embrace her, now comfortable in the routine of weekly visits. "Can we feed the ducks in the park after lunch?" "If the weather holds," Olivia promised, receiving their enthusiastic hugs. As they settled around her dining table, Olivia surveyed the faces of those who had helped rebuild her life from the ashes of betrayal. Raphael, her steadfast brother; Elena, the physician who had become a trusted friend; Isabel, who had welcomed her unreservedly into their family circle; the children who offered unconditional affection, untainted by the past. There remained an empty space, the absence of the son she had raised and loved. Diego continued to make his monthly restitution payments, but had not yet demonstrated the profound change of character that might eventually lead to reconciliation. Olivia had learned to live with this absence, neither denying its pain nor allowing it to overshadow the new joy she had found. "A toast," Raphael proposed, raising his glass. "To new beginnings, to justice served, and to the remarkable strength of my sister, who taught us all how to face betrayal with dignity and emerge stronger." "To Olivia," the adults echoed, while the children giggled and clinked their juice glasses enthusiastically. Olivia smiled, accepting their tribute with the quiet confidence she had reclaimed. The betrayal of trust had nearly destroyed her, but in its aftermath she had discovered reserves of resilience she hadn't known she possessed. She had learned that family was defined not by obligation or blood alone, but by consistent love, respect, and trustworthiness. Most importantly, she had reclaimed her voice, her autonomy, her right to define her own life. No one would ever again make her doubt her own mind or worth. The painful journey had led unexpectedly to a place of profound self-knowledge and peace. As she served the paella Antonio's recipe preserved in her memory, despite Diego's attempt to erase such connections to her past, Olivia reflected that true justice wasn't found merely in legal settlements or financial restitution, but in the freedom to rebuild, to choose one's path forward, to find joy despite profound loss. The betrayal would always remain part of her story, a dark chapter never to be forgotten. But it would not be the final chapter. That Olivia had determined would be written in her own hand, filled with the connections, dignity, and purpose she had fought so hard to reclaim. And in that victory, quiet, dignified, but complete, lay the true resolution of her journey from victim to survivor, from betrayal to renewal, from darkness back into light.